Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Be Fearless. A little bit later than the build time. I hope you're still with us. And if not, please can you put hashtag replay and join us on the replay and tell us about your takeaways from today. Well, as always, I am your host for this Global Speakers Talk podcast, Be Fearless. I'm Lisa Marie. I'm a primary school teacher. And now I work with parents who want to work with their children on their homework or with their schoolwork at home. I'm also a children's author, and I have and a children's illustrator. I have 3 books that I've illustrated that have now come out on Amazon. And I am very excited to let you know that today we have a very special guest here with us. Her name is Quanita Loach, and she is an international podcast host herself. She is also a speaker, an author, an influencer, and a coach. And she's the founder of the Renewed and Reminded Godly podcast, where she shares kingdom principles and gives kingdom advice to study, listen, and apply the word of God to our everyday lives. Through life struggles, she specializes in spiritual growth coaching, covering topics concerning the heart, soul, and mind. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Quanita. Hi, Quanita. How are you today?
Hi, good morning. Good morning. I'm excited to be here. I have, remembered and inspired and through the storm, literally. I am here this morning by faith and by assignment.
I heard that you've got some dodgy weather over there at the minute. You're over in the United States, aren't you? We're over here in England, so it's actually the afternoon for us. So I wonder what time of the day it is for all of our listeners today, but I hope everybody's having a great day. Before we
Yes.
dive into the questions, Quinita, I wondered if you could share with our audience a little bit about how you put your love into the world. What do you give back and how do you help people?
Um, to answer that question would be, what is love first? I would start there. Can you hear me okay?
Mhm.
Okay. Um, love is kind of sometimes it's really reciprocated in a lot of different ways. Like, you can love a show on Netflix, just like you can love a pair of shoes at Shoe Carnival. But to really show love to people you don't know, people that have had troubles and trials and have no idea that you could care out of all the people that should have been caring about them, don't. The biggest thing I believe is really being an ear and observing what someone is saying rather than trying to gather my response like I did before. I'm pretty young, but I've learned through a lot of trials that you need to listen to understand versus listen to speak. And I think that is the most authentic love that I can give anybody in the world, is to truly listen and observe. Now, maybe they don't want to hear the truth, but I did listen.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's wonderful. It's nice for the audience to get to know you a little bit before we dive into your stories, of which you'll share more about how you've been fearless or how you're working on being fearless. So is it okay for me to dive into my first question today, Quinita?
Yes. Yes, I'm
Fabulous.
excited.
So what I'd like you to tell us today is about some time in your life, some experience where you either were fearless enough to go through with it, or you felt some fear and it stopped you from doing something that you wanted to do or that you knew you had to do.
Mm. This preparing for our interview today, I had printed out the questions to make sure I understood each question clearly. And this is such a ever-present question because as a speaker and as that being something that I love to do, I have to go back and know my first works. And so the fearless part of me is saying, okay, well, you can do the speaking, but can you do the dedicating, washing clothes and washing the dishes? Can you do your first work? Because that's what you need to be doing in the first place before you do this other stuff. And I think the biggest thing was understanding I want to do both and quietly fighting, do I need to do both? Should I be having to battle the uncomfortable balance? And is it supposed to be a balance? Where do I find a medium? And I think the fear sets in because you've never seen anybody else do it. and be really successful at it unless, they have one of the three that you have. You have all seven, and, you have everything. And this person is successful, they have one or two. So it's like, oh, you got a little bit more time than I do. So I believe that the apprehension to know the biggest thing was really by faith. I could not do anything without God. And I understand that he does not move off of my emotion. He's never moved off of any man's emotion. And if he has built us a way that we can overcome by the words of our testimony, then I had to start studying, what am I speaking that's making me fearful and maybe even lazy to do my normal, and I want to be so inspired to do what I want to do, but I can't show up all the way because I didn't do what I needed to do. And I recognized that it was fear. It was fear of the impossible of success. And knowing that that was at hand, you don't know what that looks like. You've never seen it. Maybe you come from a family like I did and you've not seen success unless you've had, maybe a really long job. Maybe you're not going out and trying something new. You're concentrated and you're sticking to the plan. So the biggest way I believe that I learned was I had to sit down and ask myself this question: what do I really need? And that took care of fear, because sometimes what we fear is a lot of stuff that we want and we don't need it. Because if we get it, we try to maintain it and we don't have the capacity to do that. We want to learn to get it instead of having it already and knowing how to maintain it. It's challenging because we didn't maintain the little, like the Bible does tell us, maintain that little before I can give you much more. And so fear kind of creeps in different ways, depending on the seed of what we think and see. And the way I overcame that was simply being honest and saying, I'm not ready. I do want this. I do want to do this, but I'm not ready yet. And I have to get better and be consistent at these little, small, consistent things. Maybe it's open the blinds every day instead of sitting in the living room in the dark. That's great. Maybe it's just putting your dishes away out of the dishwasher so that you don't have to be like, where's the spoons? Because your child and your husband and anybody else, depending on how large your family is, they're going to come ask you this question. It does not come good when you're on the computer trying to host anything and you're finding yourself maybe a little bit, maybe spicy because, just look in the dishwasher. But that's not their go-to. Their go-to is you. And you cannot abandon your role.
No,
just can't do it.
Absolutely. And I totally relate to that. I mean, and I know there's many people out there in the school holidays. It's a whole different routine that you take on, when you've got children. Even today for this podcast, my children are playing outside, with a friend, so, because you have to make these arrangements. But I appreciate what you're saying. And it's about those baby steps, isn't it? It's about those little tiny steps and celebrating every one of them. Sure. And so this is you said it came from fear, and how do you feel that you've moved forward through some of that fear because you found the solution? And what actions did you take to overcome any fear that you had? Can you share those with us? Any strategies?
Yeah, so I think the biggest overcoming of fear is and just let me clarify, because sometimes I get so excited that I miss to tell you the key point. The key point of what you asked me the first time was there ever something that prevented me because of fear? Did I ever want to do something and I stopped because of fear? And I stopped speaking. I stopped podcasting. I stopped truly trying to listen to the Lord and say, I heard what you said, but I'm scared and I'm afraid and I don't want to do this. And I've never done this. And I can barely, fold the clothes when they come out the dryer fast enough before they get wrinkled. So where do I begin to think about overcoming? Again, it started with my language. I had to really understand, do I move dictated off of my emotions? I've got to conquer this. Another disciple of mine. She was in a conference that we did called May Overflow. And in her key point, she said, I've gained I had to learn how to discipline to really become a disciple of Jesus Christ, but I had to discipline my own emotions that they do not rule my day. I tell my day, I command my day. And when she said that, something just broke. And what are you doing every morning? I'm just getting up and saying, oh, here we go. And I wasn't doing that. I had maybe started and stopped. And with inconsistency, it's like a bad fruit. You put it in the ground, but you didn't water it, you didn't nurture it. 6 months later, you're like, what are you doing? Why are you not out the ground? And down there, the seed is like, why you didn't take care of me? Like, so the inconsistency I had to overcome. And the way I overcame inconsistency, again, was sitting down. And it's something about God that when you're being still and he can really show you. If you're moving a lot, and I have a podcast that's called, being busy, basically is just, you're just being busy to be busy. You're not really even moving, spiritually speaking, and physically you're exhausted. You're doing 1,000 things, but your spirit still feels insignificant. Everything you've done does not make you understand that you are truly a good person. You just feel like a good person at this time. You haven't disciplined the feeling because it's still provoking you tomorrow. I didn't feel like I did anything enough. I didn't feel like I did this yet. And the way to overcome that is to sit still and to truly do an evaluation of self. And what that means is asking myself, am I inconsistent? And you have to be honest. Maybe you want to justify it or go back and forth sometimes. You can't do that. You got to be honest, because then that's where your real, just like we talked about at the summit at the beginning of the year, your key things to make 22 a better year. You got to be honest with yourself. If you can't do that, you will constantly begin to do pretty much what a lot of people do for advertisement. They begin to manipulate you to think you need a thing, to keep having you buy it, and you'll do it to yourself for free. So you have to be able to tell the truth. That was the one thing that helped me get over fear. Honesty, another thing to help you get over fear. Being truthful, got it. But being honest and saying, well, I felt that I wasn't good enough. That's why I didn't get on here. That's why I didn't, that's why I didn't, check on it. Why do you not feel good enough? Where did this come from? And reading the word of God, that's definitely how I've overcome. And I realized that there's supposed to be hard times. So you are not going to ever get away from that. But however, you can have the hard times, and you can either have faith and you can have fear. And the only way you can understand which one you are maybe feeling like you are basically balancing with is if the storm hits and it slaps you and you can no longer pretend under that pressure. That's how you know which one you're in. And just like our pastor recently, she was sharing a story in her sermon that I had really just, I kind of looked at a couple of times, but I just didn't really understand it. And Jesus was in the boat asleep, and the disciples on top were just nervous because the water was coming in that boat. They didn't think about they were going to go to the other side without that boat. That boat was supposed to get them to the other side. And we're like that with fear. We're like that with situations. Oh, this job, this situation is going to get me to my better, greater part of life. And sometimes it does not work. It does not look like it's working for our good at all. But again, the strategies is to realize, am I using my faith here? Am I speaking to this? Am I telling myself this day is going to be a great day? Today is the day that I will overcome all things that held me back yesterday. Am I starting my day, or is my day already started and I'm in it and the day is like, you ain't did nothing. You didn't even do this yet. Oh, you haven't started that yet. Oh, you ain't supposed to wrote a book about 2 years ago? And all those thoughts are invisible. They're invisible. And so I've learned, again, is that the invisible is supposed to teach you what you should be focusing on. The inconsistency begins to balance you when you start learning your value. And I mean, really, just like you said, you have 3 books on Amazon. You're starting to discover I have things to give. I am not about to sit in here and allow fear to paralyze or cripple me any longer. I have something that somebody else needs, and it is so selfish of me to sit here and think and wander and ponder on something that I can truly speak to and say, leave me alone in the name of Jesus and get out of here. And to start getting better at that and being stronger and speaking with that authority. You don't have to have balance. You don't need it. It can be as imbalanced, upside down as it needs to. But as long as you're speaking to the thing, just like Jesus did, you're going to overcome your fear. Overcome it.
Yeah, what I'm hearing, what I'm totally hearing from you is, and it's interesting because this is a thread that runs through a lot of the stories that people give. The first word you said, which was powerful, is consistency. That helps, with the fear. Then with you, a big part of it is the faith, isn't it? And this is, and people parallel with that with talking to themselves. So with you, when you let your faith, when you let God come in, you're able to speak with yourself because you're hearing him. So it's very interesting how the talking to yourself, the lot of self-talk, because you also mentioned the negative, where we're like, what have you done today? The other side of the coin that we don't want. And that brings the fear in, I'm not good enough. Who am I to think I can share this with people? So that was so interesting. Thank you. And I love to hear your story of how you work through fear and those strategies that have really helped you. And with regard to the first thing you talked about with being fearful that it wasn't the right time, have you made steps now to sort of, you've overcome that to a certain extent and put all of these things in practice to now feel the fear and do it anyway, or not feel the fear in your case? Because when you sit quietly and you have your faith, you no longer have that fear, and it's a big thing that eradicates it. Is this the case?
Yes. And the way she said it on Sunday was such a really good way of keeping it current to, just driving down the street and telling somebody. She said, if fear comes, faith leaves. I could tell that to anybody. I could see somebody right now at the store crying about maybe they don't have enough money to get those groceries, and they could have the fear of wanting of accepting help. I could help you, but because maybe depending on how you feel like you may have to pay somebody back, you never seen anybody do anything genuine. Some people will reject that. That's a fear. You will never see anybody say that's a fear. They'll say that I got it. They'll see it as a strength, when really it's manipulation. You've had a really hard life, and I've been there, where you just think that you have to solve all your problems all by yourself and you can't accept any help. But at the end of the day, you're so exhausted and you really are crying. You just can't show it. So how do we do that? We begin to be honest and say, you know what, I do need help. And when somebody does do something genuine, you just let your guard go and thank you, God bless, and that person now has whatever they need, and you were able to be a blessing versus always praying for one. You got to be one, which is such a reward.
Amazing. So are there anything that at the moment you dig into your faith with to keep you working through them? Do you have things at the moment that you've, I wouldn't say put fear to, but you've felt those uncomfortable feelings and had to ask for help? Is there anything currently in your life that you're feeling that way about?
Yes, so I've took what I called a necessary detox from social media. The biggest thing was, another thing I started studying was, you have to understand your weaknesses. So for 2022 to be a better year for me, I knew that one of the biggest things for me was inconsistencies, whether it's I show up on live, then I don't show up. I make a podcast and I don't make a podcast. I commit to something and then I lack that commitment to follow through and finish. I could finish half-heartedly because I've got many things that I'm not doing correctly, but I could not finish wholeheartedly. So I challenged myself this year to begin to just put that on the line. I'm going to give this up for whatever is going to be greater that comes out of it. So I hosted my first online conference this year, and I stayed committed through the whole thing. Did I have problems? Had I seen these problems? Had I ever been, besides on the Global Speakers Talk, a summit? A summit and a conference are two different things. I did not know what to begin, how to email, how to connect, but I sat still for a little while and I began to download on how to do it. And then fear came. You've never done this. What if you spell something wrong? What if you publish something wrong? What if you don't get it on time? Like you said, you're not on time all the time. And I said, you know what? Even if I'm not on time, I'm going to finish. Even if I am late, I'm going to show up and apologize like I did this morning. Hey, I messed up and I'm going to get it right, because fear eventually really wants to do two things. It wants to have you stay where you were, which is not in the successful part of you. The second part is it really wants you to keep believing in it, because fear is not even real. It's not. It's not. Babies
Sometimes
don't have
perceived. You're right. Sometimes you've perceived it in your mind because your brain is trying to protect you, isn't it, from your perceived fears, and they may not be as bad when you actually, try to step over that barrier of fear. Absolutely.
Right. So am I overcoming fears? Absolutely. I have just started to get back on the camera. This week, Monday was my first live, and I am telling you, and I'm literally going to finish Monday through Friday, because there are things that happen maybe at the same time that you are supposed to be doing something, but you have to become, again, consistent and saying, I got to get up earlier and take care of that so I can do this. No longer do I balance the both at the same time like a clown, like a circus. You're playing circus with yourself. You can't do that. You have to really draw the line and say, I want to do this, but I know I have to do the other side. So let's take care of that. And then I'll also do that. So do I have fear still? Absolutely. Because it's going to be what is called your necessary medium. When I get on a stage to speak, am I going to be fair? Oh, yeah, I am. But that fear is going to remind me, don't you remember the first video you did? Don't you remember your first sitting down and you did it? So instead of you scaring me, you're actually going to be my push to step forward and say, hey, I'm going to get out of here. My first words, I'm scared, but I'm not scared.
Yeah, I love
that. Everybody will start laughing like, oh, what is she talking about? And I'm like, I just got to get it off of me, because it tries to really wear you like you clothe, like it wants to clothe you. Especially if you're doing something just like today, you could feel defeated. You could feel, you just don't know, some things, it's one little tiny thing that can come. And if you feel like you're working towards overcoming it, it's a small little tiny thing that comes after that. And it'll try to bring all its friends, like anxiety. Anxiety will try to bring all the friends of worry, all the things that you lack, all the things that you're not good at, and it'll just keep going until you literally stop allowing it to happen to you and you start getting consistent. It's not, if you're good Monday, they're going to come back Tuesday and Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and you finally said something Saturday. Okay, well, they're going to come back Sunday. Like, you have to get just consistent in that area to say, I am going to continue to be fearless. Not just one day.
Even if they're consistently back every day, you're still going to have them. They're still going to come even after you are consistent too. We just have to almost make friends with fear and not see it as the enemy, Remember, it's there to protect us, but say, hey, I'm not listening to you, big guy, because I got things I need to do. And what I loved about what you just said, when you said about going on the stage and how you feel the fear beforehand, I love that you talked about it's good that you feel it, because part of you is like, okay, well, it'll be over and then I can get off. But also I think fear helps us to be better, to perform better, to give better. Because if we weren't fearful and if we weren't worried about getting up on the stage, we may not do such a good job, for our audience. We want to feel the fear, a little bit of fear, so that we know how important it is that we get this message out for people to hear. So, I think you're absolutely right when you say that that having that little bit of fear can work in your favor, and that you can use it to your advantage.
Yes, and that's definitely where, just like I was quoting our pastor earlier. Her name is Valerie Holcomb. Man, if you have fear and faith arrives, fear has to leave. That was the cool thing about that quote, because you could switch the words around. And so if I have fear, just like there was, I think during the middle of the pandemic, I had the opportunity to do a broadcast on the radio. Was I afraid? Yes, because it's a radio. You click the wrong button, everybody can hear anything in the studio. That was my biggest fear. Like, oh, what if I don't turn this mic off quick enough? But then I had to learn how to transition and add the music, and not just zoom it up, slowly increase it so the ears of the radio. Just so many things, and all of this in a hour session. You got to do all of this, do the breaks, come back, and I didn't know. And so what the owner did, which was so funny, my husband was with me at the time, and he's like, all right, didn't I show you these, what to do? And I was like, yeah, you did. He's like, all right, I'm leaving. And I was like, what? What are you leaving for? This is my first time doing this on my own. He's like, you're not going to figure this out unless you just figure it out. And I thank God for that experience, because then after that, I took that as, I took fear and said, you know what? I can't use you here because this ain't gonna work for us. Let me go ahead and move in my faith. I did know the keys. I do know to move this. I do know to click this. Just do it. If you mess up, fix it. You know what to click. It's not hard. And I recognize that that's a force to be reckoned with. When you start understanding that I'm not going to ever not have fear. I'm not going to ever not have adversity. But when I can start getting consistent and clicking over and saying, okay, I could be fearful here, but I have a choice. I'm going to be faithful. I had another example for you, even just recently. My car stopped at a place and I was cracking up. I said, oh man, this is right after I heard the faith and fear message from my pastor. I said, all right, car, I don't know what's going on with you, but you're going to start. And that's all I said. I went in, I finished everything, and I called my husband. He said, well, do this. Well, try it again. And that car started. And I said, oh, I thought it was me. I thought I was going to have fear today. But I told that car, I said, you're going to start. I don't know how you're going to start, because I don't know much about you, but you're going to start. And that car started up, got me to my house and everything. And I told my husband, I thank God for you. I thank God for your wisdom. And you know what he said? My father told me that. Because he had been in a place where something like that happened in an older car. And because of fear, he sat in and called his father, which gave him wisdom. And I told him, I said, man, and immediately my niece is about to get a car. And I know my other nephew is about to get a car. And I said, oh, I could call them now. If they car do this, hopefully it don't. But if it does, I got the wisdom to help them not be in fear in that moment of thinking, oh my goodness, this reliable car that is made by man, manufactured, should keep me going all day. Cars are imperfect. They're cars. They're made by us. We're imperfect. So we just have a high expectation in a lot of areas that we just have to get really ground rooted in knowing, man, faith is what moves the mountain. Fear probably gathers them together and puts you in a valley.
Yeah. And what I'm hearing you saying as well is about stepping into it. Once you get that faith, you're stepping in. You're doing it, step up, do it, feel the fear, step into the shadow, whatever you call it, just do it. I love that example of you being in the studio and it's like, kind of threw you in at the deep end.
Oh,
hey, what a way to overcome and learn quickly. And fear can teach us a lot about ourselves. Excellent. So now that you have this foolproof way of working through your fear and pushing through and just getting on with it, what would you describe to people as the transformation that you've seen in your life as a result of this?
The transformation would be really understanding what I believed before. I know I've talked and we've done our TED Talks together, and I talked about a kind of using a theory about my mom's history and kind of learning that I had to become quickly an adult as a child, which is impossible because you assume the responsibility. So I always grew up thinking that I was not enough. Do I face that still in a lot of areas? Yes, because I'm doing things I've never done. So now I'm questioning, can I have enough to give out? And I have to understand that my transformation is in my submission. The more I submit to God and being able to humble myself and stop saying, I can figure all this out. I will be able to do this. I can't. If I could, we would need God. So I do need God. I have to be honest and say, I do, I encourage others to make sure they understand that if you are depending on something, is it reliable?
Mm.
Because your transformation can't happen really because this source does not have enough resources to transform you. So you have to put that somewhere. And my place is, with the Lord Jesus Christ and with God and the Holy Spirit, and allowing that, again, fear to really move into being fearless. Is it fearful times? Is it scary? Yes, because it literally says that you will be worked through the fire. That means that I have to go in it to be approved. I can't be approved by watching someone else. You went through the fire, God got you. All right, no, he's gonna be like, your turn. And if you are fearful, you're gonna take off. God's gonna be like, you ready for this assignment? All right, you're gonna have your computer's gonna mess up though. So the weather's gonna mess up. You're not gonna wake up on time. You're gonna have crazy hair. Will you get over yourself? Will you be able to do that?
And will it be a fantastic interview? Yes.
Exactly. So it's just like, I think that transformation, again, I'm just looking at this paper. It really starts with, again, acceptance. Acceptance that you don't have all the answers. Acceptance that I am afraid. I don't have to be muscle, I don't have to do this right now. I could just really be honest and transparent and say, okay, here's what it is, and wait and listen for the Lord to tell us. And he uses the Holy Spirit to just that quiet, you know what, you've really been beating yourself up all week. You owe yourself to show up today. And you just get the energy to do it. Yeah. And you'll do it really good.
That's amazing. Amazing. Well, that brings me to my last question for you, actually. If you had a friend that came to you, and I think I know the answer that you're going to give me, but I'd love to hear if you've even done this, if you've had someone that's come to you and said, I'm struggling, I'm fearful, I can't do these things I need to do. I have to do them, but I just can't bring myself to. What big advice or strategy would you give them to help them to get the transformation you've had?
The biggest thing this summer, I was able to visit back home and see my parents and everything. And this question did kind of come up, where a lot of times we assume someone needs our help. Like you said, but this person, in this case, they coming to you, which gives you the authority to truly tell them the truth because they came to you. Now, doesn't have to do anything with how they receive it. We get this part confused a lot. And I did too before I got it. I got it earlier this year because I was putting myself, I remember we did one summit and I was on that summit and I was watching the other summits with global speakers talk. And then I started building the conference in April and then it was in May. So I kept doing stuff. So the more you're busy building against faith, against your fear, you'll build faith. But you're in fear. You're in fear building faith, just like how they were on that boat. They were in the boat building fear. They supposed to got over because he said they're going to get over. But Jesus was asleep. He was building faith. He was resting, even though it was storming out there. So I would say to this individual, one, how long have you been afraid of it? If it's longer than years with an S, I would ask them, what is the opposite? What is the opposite of this? Because if you want that more, something has to stop supporting the fear because you've been supporting the fear the whole time. I've been speaking here for about 3 to 4 years. And the biggest thing, and I even was able to publish a book this year. I've overcame a lot. Thank you. I first started making that podcast, and the first couple ones I remember sounded okay. But I began to do self-judgment. And I remember saying to myself, you don't sound like nobody's gonna listen to you. I don't know. And I don't like the way our voice sounds. And I begin to do the criticism and the negative evaluation to myself because now I'm doing what I feared and I didn't have enough faith to sustain, what I was doing. I was just starting. So I became I became the fear that other people could be the fear for me. I became the fear. And I understood that if I continue to work in being my fear and not being my faith, well, then the fear is going to win. So that's what I would tell this individual. If you're going to have years where you've mastered, I'm fearful, you cannot expect a season to unfear you. You have to begin to make a decision. That's the dangerous thing. It's just like getting a job. When I choose to work here, I'm choose to working here. I'm using to get my jobs, pay my bills. It's a commitment. So why do we take those significant decisions about ourselves, those quiet ones, those ones that, like you said, hey, I'm asking you to help me with this fear. I just can't get out of it. Have you taken it serious? Because if you're asking me for help, I'm expecting you, if I'm a good person, to truly move on what you believe for yourself. Otherwise, you're really believing in the fear, and that will consume you. And if you can't accept that truth, well, it's not that bad, I don't know. Well, I can't help you. Because if you don't understand what you're losing by keeping it, what am I going to tell you? I got my own fear to face. So that's what I would have to tell them, and be honest, because that's what my husband has sat down and told me. That's what my best friend has sat down. So my sisters have sat down, and it was not a good conversation, but it was a needed, necessary conversation, because if I can't tell you the truth, do I love you?
Yeah, that's so true. And you know what I also hear you say is that big, vast difference between what you have, being fearful like this and not worrying about it and not wanting to do it. What's the other side of it? That was a key to everything you were saying there. What is the other side? Do you want the other side? You've got to
Yes.
make a choice at the end of the day, haven't you? And that's the essence of what I heard that you would tell them. And I think that's fabulous. Thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom. Is there anything else you think you'd like to share with our audience before we finish today?
Um, I just want to tell you, thank you so much for the ever what's it called, limbo that you're in constantly. I know that you host a lot of GST things, and like we all know, we have our personal lives, and we deal with imperfect people like
That's
myself,
what
and
I
I
said.
appreciate your just tenacity to keep going and be fearless. That's why you are the host. I
Oh,
think, this the platform, the audience, the biggest thing here is, GST was based on us breaking out of fear of speaking together. And if you have not, hear
love
me,
that.
if you are watching this and you have not posted a video, I don't care in how long, do it.
Yes.
You will
Yeah.
feel so much better. You will overcome the little bit that you're saying, I don't know if I can do it. You can do it, and then do it again next week. Try to do it once a week. And next thing you know, boom, you'll have something. I'm trying to do this every Tuesday. You'll come up with an idea,
Yeah.
and just be patient with knowing where God is putting your heart. Don't give yourself your own desires. Let his desires fall upon you. And then that's where consistency begins to really start. Today was a moment of consistency. I said, hey, it's storming today. It may work, may not work, man. I may get up, may not. I don't know what's going on. And I said, you know what? I'm going to try again. I'm not going to let this time pass me. And we were supposed to get on here at 8 o'clock. We got on here at 8:35. Did I feel bad? Yes. Did I feel like I was late? I was late. I had to still show myself approved that I'm going to overcome despite the storm, despite everything else, despite myself and my own crazy thoughts. I'm going to get on here. And so if I've done it, then I can definitely tell you that you guys can definitely do this.
Wow. That is value right there for all of our listeners who are new to GST or old to GST. And also, what I'd like to say as well is it shows what we are GST as a family, because we didn't desert you. We were here waiting for you. We knew you wanted to
Yes.
do this. We knew you had to do this. We knew you were going to do this, and we did it. And that's what a family does. That's what people who are supporting each other in their dreams, in their goals, in their lives do. We look out for each other. And I couldn't have said it any better than the way you've explained it today about the value of GST and to get over that fear and to go forward and just
Yes.
and thank you for sharing that, because that was a Really amazing message at the end there. And thank you for everything that you've shared. Such wisdom this morning. And it was meant to be, and it has been a fantastic interview. It has been a wonderful episode of the podcast. And I'm hoping that everyone will join us again next Tuesday when we'll have another guest speaker to share their thoughts with us. But for now, I'd like to say thank you so much, Quanita, for joining us. We were blessed to have you. And thank you to everyone who's watching. And I hope everybody has a great day. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.